concern around the Zika virus. But first, we cannot ignore this violence in California as left-wing protesters attack Trump supporters. Our very own Robert Gray is in California with the latest. Robert?
Hey, Adam, that's right. Now, Hillary Clinton was just here in Los Angeles. This race is tightening up, but she wasn't talking about her rival for the Democratic nomination, Bernie Sanders. She was launching fresh salvos at Donald Trump.
And I believe absolutely that he's not only unprepared to be president, he is temperamentally unfit to be president. He doesn't really have ideas. He just engages in rants and personal feuds and outright lies, something that our country cannot afford in a commander-in-chief.
Now, Clinton has moved on to Orange County. She's at another rally right now and is launching fresh attacks on Trump. Meanwhile, Bernie Sanders has been gaining ground. Clinton once had a double-digit lead pretty much in all the polls. Now, many of them showing just a 2-point lead. And if you look at the Los Angeles Times today, they had a poll among eligible voters that actually showed Bernie Sanders ahead. Now, if you look at likely voters, however, in that same poll, Hillary Clinton was ahead of Bernie. So this is going to go down to the wire, it appears, for Tuesday's balloting. 475 delegates are up for grabs. Clinton just needs to get 71 to clinch, so it's likely she's going to, but her campaign clearly wanting to go out with a victory in California and not going across the finish line losing momentum here to Bernie Sanders, and of course trying to go ahead and take on Trump before she's actually clinched the nomination. Adam?
All right, Robert Gray in California for us. Thank you very much. We can't ignore the anti-Trump protests that took place in California following the violence in San Jose last night. There was a rally today. Trump called last night's protesters thugs. Here's what he had to say.
It was a love fest inside, no problems whatsoever. We went on, we spoke, we had a good time for an hour. I said, I want to get you guys out to see, so you can see the San Francisco team, right? The Warriors, who won. But I wanted to get them out. They said, no, we don't want to get out. We want to stay. We had just an amazing time. And that was it. And we wrapped up. Everybody was cheering like crazy for forever. Then they walk out and they get accosted by a bunch of thugs burning the American flag. Burning the American flag.
Hillary Clinton has a different take on last night's violence. She suggested that Trump is partly responsible.
I condemn all violence in our political arena. I condemned it when Donald Trump was inciting it and congratulating people who were engaging in it. I condemn it by those who are taking violent protests to physical assault against Donald Trump. This has to end. He set a very bad example. He created an environment in which it seemed to be acceptable.
Did he create that environment? Joining me now is David Morey, Steve Rogers, and Adam Goodman. David, I'm going to start with you because we have the Democratic candidates for president actually kind of condemning what happened last night, but then pointing the finger of blame at Donald Trump. There hasn't been the kind of stuff that she's saying inside a Trump rally for quite a while. This seems like an unfair attack from her.
Well, yeah, I think, there's some truth to that, and I'm going to just be sort of bipartisan here for a second. There's a perception that Trump has not dampened down some of the anger with respect to the protests and his own rhetoric. So that becomes a bit of a problem when things get out of control. In this case, it was against Trump, and it was terrible what they did to that Trump supporter. It may, in the short term, actually help Trump because he really does look like a victim here in that sense. But in the longer term, he's got to be the unifier to win an election against Hillary Clinton.
David, he's got to be the unifier, but it was not the Trump supporter. It was the Trump supporters. Steve, we saw innocent men and women just literally coming out of that Trump rally last night. One guy got cold cocked. They came up from behind him and slapped him in the side of the head, and blood everywhere. I mean, this is reprehensible in the United States.
Everything has changed since San Jose last night. This is no longer a political fight. It's a fight for the soul of this nation. And I've got to tell you, the police chief, and I'm a former cop, I'm pro-police, he should be fired, and the mayor should be tossed out of office to allow victims, to allow people to be assaulted and do nothing. And in reference to Hillary Rodham Clinton, Her statement on this is tantamount to saying that a woman is at fault for walking down the street dressed a certain way and as a result gets assaulted.
She's blaming the victims.
That's horrible.
Well, let me go to Adam. You know, he does have to unify, and he is unifying Mr. Trump. He is unifying the Republican Party. It seems to me, if you're a Trump supporter or you're an independent who might be leaning towards Mr. Trump, you see this kind of thing, especially the burning of the U.S. flag. When you burn the flag of the United States of America, that riles people up, and I got to believe that would put people right in line with Donald Trump.
Well, it certainly, Adam, crossed over every line of decency and feelings we have as Americans for due respect. Look, what we saw last night were scenes of thug-driven violence. And to hear the mayor, Mayor Liccardo, talk about how Trump basically should stay out of his city and every other city in America to try to avoid this would be the same as if we had said years ago, and we should have. Back in 1965, if the mayor of Selma said to Martin Luther King Jr., stay out of Selma, we should have had the same reaction. This election, Adam, will ultimately be a reflection and a choice between not just a Republican and Democrat. There's a third entry on the ballot, the American people. And this is going to be a reflection how we decide to deal with things like this, about who we are. And we're better than this.
David, people vote emotion. We can talk on TV about issues and logic, but it's emotion. And I got to tell you, I think for a lot of people, you burn the American flag and you go right to the Republicans to vote. You cannot burn the American flag. For most of us, that is just an outright offense.
No, understood. And listen, there should be investigations. I agree with what's been said. The San Jose mayor was way out of line with their statement. There should be investigations as to who did this. I mean, this is despicable what was done, but is it, what is going on here? Are they really representing one side or another or a third side? I think we need to get to the bottom of a lot of this. There's so much anger out here in America. They're unified in anger, the American voters, but divided in their politics, and the next president will be able to pull that together.
Steve, I'm going to devil's advocate here. I don't justify violence in any way, but Donald Trump did say almost a year ago when he announced his campaign for president, this is the quote, when Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best, they're not sending you, they're sending people that have lots of problems, they're bringing those problems with us, they're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they are rapists, and some, I assume, are good people. This is the quote that the people in San Jose who are holding the Mexican flags but also burning the American flag would cite as the reason that they acted the way they did.
But Donald Trump was telling the truth, and he wasn't saying that all the people from Mexico are coming. Maybe he could have phrased it a little better, but the spirit of what he said was truthful. And what's important here, Adam, is that Donald Trump has tapped into the heart and soul of the American people. And many people who are supporters of Trump are asking, now how do we respond? You respond in the voting booth. You make sure that Donald Trump becomes the president of the United States. That's how you respond.
It seems to me that, he's going to get quite a bit of discussion. We're talking about this all day today, and we're going to be talking about it all weekend, Steve, or rather, David. How should Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders, for that matter, what's the appropriate response to this kind of thing? Because blaming Donald Trump doesn't seem to me like it's the appropriate response.
No, look, none of the candidates should be blaming the other candidates. Let's rise above that, ladies and gentlemen, and let's do better in this country. We ought to be against any kind of protest like this. We ought to not assume that this is one side or another. Maybe there are people doing performance art, instigating things, instituting trouble against one campaign or another. We ought to be against it completely. We ought to investigate it. And the truth is that somebody's going to have to rise above the disunity of politics that we've seen for the last 16 years to win this presidential campaign. We'll see who that is, Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump.
Adam, I'm going to give you the last word on this, because when I watch the kind of video that we have all seen come out of San Jose, I'm reminded that so-called progressives believe in, quote, tolerance, and they become intolerant, and they become violent. God forbid you're a Republican because you get called evil, but Republicans look at this and it's unbelievable. You don't burn the American flag and you don't attack citizens of this country.
There's no question. But, all the talk has been about how this has been incited, fueled by Donald Trump. I'll tell you where this all began. A better part of 8 years ago. People are reacting to 8 years of drift in this country where America feels we're just not on our game anymore. They're angry, they're upset, they're anxious, and they're starting to act out a little bit. This is not Donald Trump causing this. This is Donald Trump as a messenger, sending a message to the rest of America that we're going to do better.
All right. You don't want to miss, by the way, all three of you, thank you very much for joining us, but you don't want to miss our primary election coverage.